I hope you enjoy my stories. Instead of just clicking thumbs down, please comment and share how we can do better. If you do like our video, then please like and subscribe.
HOA reform to stop harassment and bullying from board members and management companies against homeowners is urgently needed at a national level. At the end of December 2023, I contacted the HOA County Oversight Commission to file a complaint against the board of directors and management after I discovered there seems to be an unfair trend of singling out homeowners to harass and intimidate.
I have lived in this community for well over 20 years after relocating to Maryland in 2000.
I had never heard of an HOA prior to moving to this state.
I lived for a very short time in my first home under 2 years, then moved to a house that better accommodated my family. I was given a vague response by the Realtor when I asked about the HOA and assured it was no big deal.
Upon moving into the home, the Rules and Regulations booklet was discovered in the kitchen, which included a plots map of the land.
I filed it away, believing this was just a formality.
How absolutely wrong and naive that action turned out to be.
Throughout the course of living in the community, I kept hearing one particular name, kept being repeated as an active board member and not in a positive way. I have always been a very private person throughout my life and have always stayed clear of politics until now.
About 10 years after I had been living in the community, a homeowner came to my home one Saturday, politely introduced herself and proceeded to explain she was a retired police officer and had been gifted custom-made garage doors as part of her retirement. She was also fighting for her life and receiving chemotherapy. The threats and harassment this homeowner received undoubtedly helped shorten her life. After spending a lot of money in legal fees, she won the right to keep her garage doors. That did not stop the harassment from the HOA board.
The same person who was involved in that case continues to be on the board today. I have now become a whipping post and is experiencing how it feels to be singled out for victimization.
On December 30, 2023, I took my case to the county board and requested a meeting with the Oversight Committee. I submitted several detailed emails and photographs to the committee, left several messages, and did not receive a response within the time. I was assured someone would get back to me. Meanwhile, the board of directors and management summoned me to a Zoom meeting and proceeded to punish me. I was also barred from being on the board. The owner of the management company also attended the meeting and actively participated in being belligerent, passive-aggressive, and downright racist. There is a lot more to this story. The rules are being bent and heads are turned regarding privileges and permits. The President of the United States is allowed no more than 8 years in office. So why would anyone want to volunteer to sit on a board without compensation? What's wrong with this picture? Homeowners across the country need to call for and demand reform on a national level. Who is really benefiting from HOAs?
HOA fees are akin to an extension of property taxes, which continues to increase exponentially along with the homeowner dues.
Why are homeowners being strangled so discriminatory and being forced to pay for services twice? And what about retired homeowners living on a budget?
This atrocity is part of the reason social and economic wealth gap continues to widen every year.
Management companies are going around buying up HOAs unbeknownst to homeowners through shady deals with the board of directors. Then these companies with the board members' blessings walk around homes, looking for deficiencies and send violation notices, which includes flyers advertising their construction companies with an offer to perform repair/appropriate services, which is a conflict of interest and predatory behavior.
If we're lucky, Social Security increases by a measly 2 to 3% each year. The HOA dues in my community increased by 152% within the last 5 years.
Here's a hypothetical question for everyone. What would happen if every homeowner across the country brings a collective class action lawsuit against their HOAs and management companies across the country?
When did we all agree to live under communist HOA military rule in American communities?
We are paying taxes for services which are being handed off to HOAs and management companies because lazy county and states officials are refusing to enforce the law and do their jobs. Then HOA dues are used to pay attorneys to enforce frivolous rules against the people paying into this fund. That is another conflict of interest.
We all need to push back in unison against this blatant violation.
So let me tell you about the parking saga. That's basically the driving force, pun intended, of all drama in my dad's neighborhood. Honestly, you'd think they'd have figured it out by now.
But nope, the situation's as tangled as a bowl of spaghetti left out overnight.
The design of the neighborhood is a headache from start to finish. It's as if they thought cars were going to become extinct in a few years or something, because there's not nearly enough parking spots for everyone.
And to make matters worse, after 6 p.m., it becomes an urban safari hunting for a place to park. You'll end up trekking blocks and blocks, just because you dared to work late or grab dinner after school. Can you imagine? Every curb painted a glaring red, screaming "no parking here" louder than my mom when I forget to take out the trash.
A couple of years ago, the neighborhood council, in their infinite wisdom, decided we needed parking stickers. But here's the kicker. You only get one if your household has more than 2 cars. And those cars?
Yeah, they expect you to squeeze them into your garage like we're all playing a giant game of Tetris.
Because apparently, having space to store things in your garage is a concept too grand for the neighborhood council to grasp. But wait, it gets better. After enough complaints jammed up their inboxes, because let's be real, no one actually goes to those meetings unless they're serving free food, the council hatched another brilliant plan.
Now, every visitor to our oh-so-exotic neighborhood has to have a special placard hanging in their car.
Without it, they're practically begging to be towed.
And here's the real punchline. Each house only gets one visitor placard.
Yeah, you heard that right.
It's like saying, sure, have friends, but don't you dare have more than one at a time.
Seriously, there are no parking lots nearby, and if you think you can sneak around this by parking on the street just outside the community, think again. It's a no man's land of no parking signs.
So this is where my brilliant, if I say so myself, idea comes in. It was a crisp Saturday morning when I thought, why not turn this ridiculous situation into an opportunity?
I mean, every household has exactly one placard, right? But not everyone uses theirs all the time.
My neighbors are pretty chill, and we all suffer under the tyranny of the parking policy together.
Why not share the wealth, or in this case, the parking? I started talking to my dad and some neighbors, maintaining a safe distance because, times are weird.
What if I began pitching my scheme with all the enthusiasm of a kid in a candy store? We created a parking placard pool.
If someone's expecting more than one guest, they can borrow an extra placard from a neighbor who's not using theirs. To my surprise, the idea didn't crash and burn.
In fact, people loved it.
My dad, ever the community guy, helped me set up a simple system. We made a WhatsApp group, Parking Palooza. My naming skills are impeccable, I know. Anyone needing an extra placard would send a message, and if someone could lend theirs, they'd respond.
Simple but effective.
The first test of our new system was when Mrs. Henderson down the street had her grandkids visiting. You'd think she was hosting a royal banquet with the fuss the parking situation caused. She needed 2 extra placards. Lo and behold, Parking Palooza came through, and the day was saved. Mrs. Henderson's grandkids got to visit without their parents worrying about their car being towed to the next century, and the neighborhood got a little bit closer.
It wasn't long before Parking Palooza became the unofficial neighborhood watch, but for cars.
People started talking more, not just about parking, but about everything.
Mr. Singh, who I swear I'd only seen in passing, told me jokes so bad they looped right back to being funny.
But like every high school movie has taught us, no good deed goes unpunished. The neighborhood council, upon hearing about our little rebellion, was less than thrilled.
They called an emergency meeting, which shockingly was packed because apparently the promise of drama is a stronger draw than free pizza.
The council tried to argue that Parking Palooza undermined the sanctity of the parking policy.
Yes, they actually used the word sanctity, as if the parking regulations were ancient relics and not just a major pain.
In a turn of events that felt straight out of a heartwarming sports movie, the neighborhood stood up for Parking Palooza. People shared stories of how this silly little WhatsApp group made them feel more connected, how it turned a frustrating situation into something positive. Even grumpy old Mr. Jacobs, who everyone thought only cared about his lawn, spoke up, saying these kids might be onto something. In the end, the council had no choice but to back down.
They couldn't exactly argue against community spirit, especially when it was making everyone's lives a bit easier. They did, however, issue a stern warning that we were on thin ice, which we all knew was code for, "We can't find a legitimate reason to stop you, but boy do we wish we could." So, Parking Palooza lives on.
It's more than just about parking now.
It's about borrowing sugar, feeding pets, while neighbors are on vacation, and yes, making fun of the council's next brilliant idea together. All because of a crazy parking policy.
And as for me,
I'm just glad I don't have to walk 5 blocks to my house anymore. Plus, I learned a valuable lesson. Sometimes the most annoying problems can bring people together in ways you'd never expect. Oh, and never underestimate the power of a good WhatsApp group. When I first moved into this neighborhood, I thought I had hit the jackpot. The monthly fee was just $50 for access to a community pool, and from what I could tell, the homeowners association seemed pretty laid back. You hear horror stories about HOAs, but the documents I read before buying made it seem like this one was different. My single-family home, situated on a corner lot, felt like the perfect fit.
everything was great at first.
The documents were pretty clear. Front yards couldn't be fenced, side and backyard fences couldn't soar over 6 feet, and you needed the HOA's nod for it all. Nothing about a no fence in the front yard situation, apart from a bit about side yards, abutting a street, needing to be under 42 inches. Bylaws? Zilch on fence restrictions. So when the time came and I wanted to fence in our side yard, just for a little more privacy, you know? I didn't think it was going to be a big deal.
I penned a note to the board expecting a straightforward yes. Imagine my surprise when they clapped back with a firm no, throwing around some nonsense about how I already had my quota of fencing with the backyard fence as permitted in the CC&Rs. I scoured those documents cover to cover, nowhere did it say 1 fence per house or side yards off limits.
I pushed back, asking them to highlight where exactly the rule book said my side yard couldn't have a fence.
Their response?
Come to the monthly meeting and we'll talk about it. Great.
Except I was scheduled to be out of town for work.
Couldn't make it. And they knew it. Still, I had noticed at least 5 other houses in the neighborhood fences proudly standing around their side yards.
Why not me then?
Encouraged by what I saw, I considered just going ahead with it. Get the proper survey and check in with my neighbors, who were all for it, by the way, and put up a tasteful, rule-abiding fence. But then, what if the HOA decided to make an example out of me?
Could they actually veto a project that seemed well within the rules?
I decided to roll the dice.
The project started smoothly, neighbors complimenting the nice touch it was adding to the neighborhood. Then came the knock. The HOA board, not just refusing but outright hostile, slapped me with fines for starting the project, and delivered a cold-hearted message. They'd never approve my fencing request.
If you don't like it, sell and move, they said.
Just like that, my peaceful home became a battleground. I couldn't believe it.
Here I was trying to improve my property with a project that harmed no one, that was in fact welcomed by my immediate neighbors, and the HOA decided to wage war over it.
The other fences in the neighborhood? Suddenly, no one wanted to talk about them. It was as if I had kicked a hornet's nest, and now I was facing the consequences alone.
The fines started piling up, each one a reminder of the power the HOA held over my daily life. I considered fighting them, maybe even legally, but the stories I'd heard from others didn't paint a promising picture.
It seemed like these battles consumed time, money, and energy, often leaving the homeowner broken no matter the outcome.
Selling. The thought had crossed my mind even before this mess, but now it felt like a defeat.
To pack up and leave because of some power-tripping board members. It didn't sit right with me.
But with each passing day, the pressure mounted. Friends and family didn't understand why I would put up with this nonsense.
Maybe they were right. Maybe this wasn't the hill to die on. But then again, it wasn't just about a fence.
It was about principle, about not being bullied, about making a stand for what's fair and right. These thoughts swirled in my head day and night, a mix of anger, frustration, and a stubborn determination not to let the HOA win.
The community I once thought was perfect had shown its true colors, governed by arbitrary rules and power plays. The fence, now half-built and a daily reminder of this battle, stood as a symbol of my stand against the HOA's tyranny.
As I weigh my options, I can't help but feel a sense of loss. A loss of community, of the simple pleasure of making your home truly yours, and of the belief that reason would prevail. I'm left wondering if there's a place out there where a man can just build a fence in peace, or if that too is just another suburban myth.
The decision looms large.
Do I dig in my heels, sell and move on, or find another way through this? The outcome remains uncertain, but one thing's clear. This is more than just about a fence. It's about finding a way to live on my own terms, even in the shadow of an HOA that refuses to bend.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.